Hello everyone, welcome back to the Anatomy Lab. Today we're going to be taking a look at bone tissue, specifically the different types of bone tissue, how they're organized, as well as their associated structures. So let's start off by taking a look at this model here. So what you can see here is like different types of bone. So on this side you can see that you have all of this bone that is like really jam-packed into this like very kind of small space. This is called compact bone. This bone is very densely organized so that you have a lot of bony tissue within this amount of space. Now on the other hand, over here you can see that you have, once again, you have bone tissue, but there's a lot of spaces in between them. You only have bone tissue here, 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 and so on, but in between that bony area you have all of this kind of red stuff, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. So this would be compact bone, while this would be spongy bone with all of the holes and all of the spaces. Compact bone is going to be organized very specifically. As you can see, there are these repeated kind of organizations like throughout the compact bone. You can see that you have like a circle, another circle, and another circle, and furthermore, inside of each of the circles you have like smaller circles. These are concentric circles of bony tissue. You have smaller little cavities, as well as like certain other things as well. So first of all, this is called an osteon. And osteons are going to be the repeated organization that you find throughout like compact bone. You can see it all throughout the compact bone, and this is what's going to allow it to really keep a lot of bony tissue to allow for a lot of strength and a lot of support, but it's going to be a lot denser and heavier as well. So first of all, this is one osteon. You can see the osteon and you can recognize it based off of its like multiple circles within a single kind of central circle. So osteon, but in the middle of each of the osteons you also have a space. So this space is called a central canal. So what you see inside of the central canal is like some of these kind of like red tubes. These are blood vessels. And if you look at this one down here, you can see this central canal has blood vessels going through it as well. And it's going to be going down the length of the bone and then connecting to other blood vessels as well. This blood vessel is going to allow the bone tissue to have blood flowing through it so that you can provide nutrients, oxygen, and take away waste from this bony tissue. Now, besides like the central canal, the actual circles themselves, like this circle, and all of these other smaller circles, these are going to be called lamellae. So lamellae, or lamella for singular. So this would be a lamella, this would be a lamella, and so on. So to actually have a lot of bony tissue, you have all of these lamellae, but you also have some spaces between the lamellae. So to be clear, not within a lamella, but between, like 1 and 2, you have this in between. These small cavities are going to be small little spaces where these cells live. These are called lacunae, or lacuna for singular. And if you're familiar with like the prefix and the suffix for bone and cell, you might know that site means cell and osteo means bone. So in this case, you're going to have osteocytes living inside of the lacunae. And you can see that they're kind of represented by these dark dots here. These are lacunae with the osteocytes living inside of them. So far we had the osteon, the lamellae, the lacuna, as well as the osteocytes. But the last thing that you can see here associated with the osteon is these tiny little lines. These lines that kind of radiate from like each of the different lacunae, these are called canaliculi for plural, or canaliculus for singular. These small little lines allow these lacunae to, or these osteocytes, to communicate with each other so that they could exchange information, exchange materials, and so on. So osteocytes inside of the lacuna, and then the canaliculi branching off of the lacuna. So you should be able to identify all of those different structures for any given osteon. Like this osteon should have all of them, this osteon should have all of them, and so on. Now, one thing to clarify is that there's actually different types of lamellae. So the lamellae, like within a single osteon, these are called concentric lamellae. So all of these would be concentric lamellae, which is like a circle upon a circle upon a circle. But you can also see there are lamellae between them, the like interstitial lamellae, but also these large lamellae that are going to be going along the very outside of the bony tissue. Like you can see that you have this very large circle out here. These lamellae are called circumferential lamellae. So depending on the lamellae, they'll be a little bit different, so just be careful as you're identifying them specifically. Now, just to kind of move over to the spongy bone side, you can see the spongy bone here and notice that it's not circles. It doesn't look like an osteon. So this is definitely not compact bone, this is spongy bone. But inside of the spongy bone, between all the spaces, this is red bone marrow. So all this kind of pinkish looking stuff, this is red bone marrow where like blood cells, like red blood cells will be created. Now there are some other structures that you should be familiar with as well. So first of all, if you look here, like you had all of those central canals, but going across the central canals, you have this other tube called a perforating canal. The perforating canal is going to go across the tube, like against the length of the bone, and it's going to be going and connecting all of these central canals. But furthermore, you also have a couple of linings of the bone as well. So a lining that'll be on the outside of the bone, as well as a lining that will be on any internal spaces of the bone. So if you look closely here, you have this thing that is on the outside of the circumferential lamellae. This is called periosteum. So periosteum will be on the outside of the circumferential lamellae to cover the entire bone. But also you can see these tiny little like lines coming from them as well. These are going to be perforating fibers. So the fibers that help the periosteum to connect to and anchor to the circumferential lamellae, perforating fibers. But lastly on this side, if you look very closely at the spongy bone, like this kind of layer surrounding the spongy bone, this is going to be something also covering like the bony tissue, but in this case on the inside of the bone. This layer is going to be called endosteum. So you can see that this is a covering of the internal cavities of the bone. That is endosteum, while this on the outside is periosteum. So once you do start looking at the bone, it is relatively clear in how you can organize it. At the very least, make sure you can identify all of those osteon structures, because that is going to be something that you'll see throughout all of the compact bone. Alright, so with that said, I think that's about it for this video. Good luck with your studying, thanks for listening, and I'll see you all next time.